Sexual assault is not only a public health issue, according to the CDC, according to many healthcare groups across the world, it is a public health epidemic. And so when I was reading through the governor's vetoes the Saturday before last, I woke up in the middle of the night, was doing some work. I occasionally will do that, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I read this line, and she's talking about the vetoes. Each of these lines attempts to serve a portion of our population for which we extend our sympathy and encouragement, but nevertheless it is only a small portion of South Carolina's chronically ill or abused. And my question is, what planet is she living on?
This is a crime that impacts all of us. It impacts men and women, young and old, children and adults, people who are wealthy and those who are not, and it impacts Democrats, Republicans. This is not a political issue. It's a public health issue, and it's a crime. It's one that we must take a stand to end, and the only way that we can end sexual assault in South Carolina is by supporting rape crisis centers and sexual assault programs.
These victims are our children. They're our friends. They're our family members. They're our co-workers. And assisting these victims, survivors, and I like that word, survivors of sexual violence, is not a distraction. It is not a distraction from government's mission, but it is in fact a public health responsibility.
I hope that people understand that this is not a black or white issue. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue, but this is an issue that brings us together. And we have a very divisive political climate, and it's unfortunate that our governor and her rhetoric has attempted to divide us again. But I think the irony and the amazing part is that you see Joan Brady stand beside Joe Lurie, a white Democrat from Richland County, and stand beside me, a black Democrat from down in Bamberg County. But yet we have so much in common when it comes to this issue. These funds fund 15 rape crisis centers across South Carolina. There could be no greater need or cost for public tax dollars to be spent than in rape crisis centers. They have helped over 5,000 victims of rape in South Carolina over the last year. They have served as advocates and allies to not only the victims but their families, going into the courtroom, dealing with law enforcement, the things that sometimes when you're out on your own and you need a helping hand, somebody to stand by you, a shoulder to lean on, that's what these rape crisis centers provide. And the thought of having their funding cut by 37%, which is what we're looking at, a 37% cut, if these vetoes are not sustained, is just not something that any of us want to think about.
You're taken through the dark back hallways to then be greeted by a nurse with medical utensils, cameras, lights, probes, and so forth. Then there's a voice that enters and a face that looks at you and says, "I'm here just for you." With the advocacy program, I never had to wait for a phone call back. Someone was always there to answer my questions, never had to be alone at any appointment I didn't want to be, and I was never treated as just any other case. This is the only thing that is just for us, just for the victims and our families.